Or you got your name on or my name on your side.
It's a StreamYard. It goes like if I'm not on OBS, so like if I type both, how do you say it? So like if I type both, if I type my name on my side, it completely takes your name away. If that makes sense. And I don't want them to think it's just me. You know what I'm
Gotcha.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
heck yeah. So how you been, man?
I've been willing yourself.
Doing good, buddy. So how did you get into martial arts?
Man, I got into it. Like as just as a fan as a kid back in the day, like early, 90s, watching a bunch of martial arts movies, stuff like that. Was always athletic, and then when fight MMA, UFC kind of like popped up. Um, a cousin of mine actually like put me onto it, back in the old like pay-per-view kind of streams, and he was like, "Yo, come check this out," and I was instantly a fan. And then fast forward to the early, like right before, like around like the tough era. I was watching it, but not, I mean, but even at the time, they weren't consistently putting on fights. And then the tough era kind of happened, and I was just ever since then I was a fan of it, and I got the opportunity really. Like it was a mutual friend um, inviting me out to. I was doing like home network installs for someone, and who coincidentally was like a wrestling coach. And fighting came up, started talking about it, and then he invited me to the gym, and then that was around 2008, and I've been in the sport ever since.
That's cool, man. So you got to fight in the UFC. Did you have one fight or two? I know you beat CM Punk for sure. That was a big deal. That was a big fight. Whether
Yeah.
people want to, admit that or not, I know he moved a ton of tickets. Like, brought a lot of eyeballs to the sport. Was that the only one, or did you have more?
No, I've had one, two, three, four. I went like two and two.
I got you.
But even with that, like it was just there was no aspirations of ever competing at that level. For me, it was just I enjoy fighting. I enjoy it from the sport aspect of it. I enjoy it from like the human chess, competitive nature. I've been like I said, I was an athlete my entire life, and fighting was just something that kind of came naturally to me from just what I was entertained by, pro wrestling, pro boxing,
Same, same.
martial arts movies, right? So I was like, yo, let's try this out. And when I realized that it was something that I was actually good at and I could compete, and again, there's levels to everything in life. And so, like I said, I never had any aspiration to be in the UFC, but when an opportunity comes up, like the whole CM Punk thing, which is essentially how I got there. Like who's gonna? Again, I'm also a prize fighter. I fight for money, and so when this opportunity comes up where I get to fight for a bunch of money and at the highest level, like who would say no to that, right?
No,
And
nobody.
so I did it, and then it allowed me to elevate my platform, and so it was just a dope little experience.
That's cool, man. So how did the CM Punk fight come about?
Um,
Because
it,
like
it
a lot of people don't know like we don't know if you got a phone call or had a manager. Nobody knows. People don't. We don't get to.
right.
Everybody don't get to see that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I've always I've been an outlier in the industry in the MMA industry for the entire time. So even when I got into MMA, it was right place, right time. I've always been a well connected individual, both in my personal life and as well as fighting. Um, and I was I the exponential growth of MMA. Like I was there and I was watching this and being a part of it in real time. And so for me, it was about who I knew. And so in that moment, Mick Maynard, who's now UFC matchmaker, he and I have, been good friends for shit, over 15 years. And given that I was associated with him, and then the CM Punk thing, he's trying to, get fights made, and again, you have to understand, like this is a business, right? So all of these people who were talking about, like they want to fight Punk, like you can't put someone who has had zero fights in there with the guy at a UFC level,
Give him Robbie Lawler.
like that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they had to find someone that made sense. And again, I was just right place, right time, right connections, and I got the opportunity.
That's awesome, man. I do think it's very cool, and I get what you're saying. CM Punk's, he never fought before. Now, and on the complete opposite end of that, Brock Lesnar came in, and I think there's just freaks sometimes. Would you agree?
No, for sure. But even that, like that's again, like I'm a logical person. Like for me, things have to make sense, common sense, right? And so you look at Punk, who, although a pro wrestler, he's not athletic. Like his extensive training is mainly jujitsu, right? And then, which he spent quite a bit of time. I think he was probably like a blue belt, maybe purple belt, at the level he was training at. Um, he getting into MMA is much different than Brock Lesnar, who Brock Lesnar, he had the actual collegiate wrestling experience prior to getting into professional wrestling. So he has a skill set that is made for MMA, particularly at the time that he came about, right? So for him, now Brock Lesnar comes around now, he doesn't do as well given the evolution of the sport, but he came in at a time where it made perfect sense for him to make that leap, going from pro wrestling to MMA. But again, for him, he has a background in combat sports with his collegiate wrestling experience. Punk didn't have that. Punk was someone who came from pro wrestling and he enjoyed combat sports. He enjoyed MMA and he wanted to transition. And it's not the same. And people who are making these comparisons are just ignorant to what goes into fighting. And that's
100%. Now, so you said you came in and started being a fan around the Tough era. You said, or
no,
that was
well,
when you
no,
started dipping your toe.
I was already a fan of the sport, but you remember back in that day, in that era of fighting, like now we get fights every weekend, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it's
I
the
got you.
evolution of the sport, right? When the tough era comes in, well, even before that, you're really only seeing fights on pay-per-views, but even the pay-per-views are like once every 2 or 3 months. They're not consistently, right. So you're getting to watch these ever so often. Or if you have like the old VHS tapes from like early UFC or Pride, if you're that, like, see, that's the era that I come from,
Yeah, I'm with you.
old school MMA where people got like the VHS tapes, and they're sharing them and they're passing them around. So I was, I my fandom started then, but the popularity of the sport and the growth comes during the tough era from the initial tough season, and that puts it on cable. It's on Spike I think it was Spike at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So you now you're getting it on actual cable television. You're getting this weekly program, and so the dynamic of the sport is now changing from a fan's perspective. And so that just now you're getting more programming, and now you get to watch the fight, or you get to watch fighting more consistently.
Yes, sir. Now, before I go to the next one, I did just want to say, just in case I didn't say it while we're on live, I do appreciate you hopping on with me. It's very cool, man. It's very cool for me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the time. What about So, what's it been like for you getting to watch the sport grow? Because I know for me, watching like UFC one now. Again, I'm 30. How old are you?
I'm 38.
Okay, so I'm a little younger, not much, but about the same time we were watching it, and we really got to see the blow up of it. But from UFC one to what we've got today, like with Anthony Pettis, jumping off the cage, you got freak athletes like Tom Aspinall and stuff like that. What's it been like for you getting to watch that change?
Man, it's been a cool experience, and the reason I say that, so just to give you a background for me, while in school, like I studied engineering. I built computers back in, like I said, even getting into to how the connection between crossing over in MMA, I was in doing home network installs for a client. How that even came about, right? So in school, particularly in high school, I'm learning about like microprocessors and the evolution of like how the computer speeds grow. I think it's called Moore's law, where the transistors double every few years or whatever. And the reason I bring that is because we're in a time where things are going to evolve way more quickly than in the past, right? So let's say prior to the UFC really taking place, the evolution of martial arts really wasn't there. You have people doing karate, maybe doing some kung fu or tai chi, but that's not translating to like actual fighting, right? So you take from UFC one, the how people are trying to figure out who's like the best discipline and things like that. things with the evolution of just technology and sports, things are gonna grow at a rapid pace, right? So for me being involved in it, I was able to see not only from a fan's perspective, I get to watch like the evolution of sports. I'm actually in the training room with fighters, and I'm growing as well. So to see that growth in real time has been, it's one of those things where because it's happening in real time, like I'm not really paying attention to it, but you can see the transition from guys like Hoist Gracie in the beginning, who had no striking, right, taking on yeah, I can't even think of his name, at the dude with the one boxing, Art Jimerson.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so you're seeing the transition from there to, I'm seeing it in the gym where you have jujitsu competitors who are trying to transition into striking. You're just like, yo, like, what are you doing? Up until the point now where I was watching kids who were like 7 and 8 years old get into MMA, right? And now they're essentially adults now. They're in their 20s now, right? But they didn't learn like one discipline at a time, right? They're learning just MMA, all encompassing it at one time. So it's been dope to watch the evolution of it, because for me, I like to watch things progress, and I'm progressive, right? So I like to watch the growth of things. So to watch someone who can barely throw a punch but be a world champion, and then that evolution goes to this world champion at one time couldn't even compete with the athletes of today because of the evolution of sport, the evolution of these skill sets. Like you say, you have individuals like, Anthony Pettis. I watched that live, like as it happened in real time. I
Crazy.
watched Anthony Pettis do the Showtime kick off the cage, and I was like, "Yo, what just happened?" That was pretty dope, right? Um, but that's what happens with fighting. That's what happens with the evolutions of sports. Is you're gonna get individuals who at one time they're just like, yeah, a sumo wrestler couldn't compete in the UFC right now because they just physically, they can't move like a heavyweight athlete currently, right?
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
they would just get dominated. Now in that sport, they're the top of the sport and their individual sport. But when
Yokozuna.
correct, right? But when we talk about the totality of these arts, when you put in the wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, all these things combined, these individual aspects of fighting, they just won't. They're not sustainable right now. So for me, it's just been a dope to see the progression, to not only see it from a fan's perspective, but also being able to, like I said, I started watching kids train at like 12, 13 years old, and now they're fighting in the UFC. They're
Yeah,
well,
it's
they're
it.
fighting
So like,
these main cards, and including the UFC.
yeah, yeah. You were saying like people used to just practice one art. Now they're starting right away. Everything, man. And I think it's making like a terrifying, terrifying age of kids, man. Because you never know what you're getting. You might come up on some scrawny kid. You're like, I'm gonna pick on that kid at the bar, and you find out real quick you picked the wrong kid because he's like got a brown belt at 10th Planet up the road.
Right. But that's the
It
thing, like that's the evolution also of life, right? You have it would come from a time where, you know, given we're this time in 2023, right? We are not far removed from people riding around in horses and
Yep.
buggies to get around, to now we have like battery powered cars, right? So we're in this moment in time where we're starting to see, like for me, like I remember when from betas to VHSs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
To DVDs, laser discs, to Blu-rays. And think about the people who they've never seen any of that evolution in their life, right? But for us, we've seen all of these transitions from different things, even in the real world, of people being able to fight, right? At one time, you can go into a bar and you could have just a bar fight, and because again, there's this the patriarchy and the toxic masculinity, right? Is like men feel inherently that they can fight, like that's a manly thing, right? And we were at a time where no one was really, people just go out and fight. and there was who's the toughest, who's the baddest for at that point. But now you have it where you can't really do that. Well, you can still, but it doesn't really make sense because, like you said, you have no idea who you're gonna run into.
None.
You're gonna see somebody, and again, I know this from personal experience from the people that I've hung out with in the sport. Coincidentally, going back to like Mick Maynard and guys, like, he and I are hanging out at bars. Mick Maynard, just like a Australian white dude, doesn't necessarily look like he can fight, but the dude's a killer. You get in these situations where we're out and people see him and they think they can just talk shit and do whatever to him, and he's kind of just sitting there like, this is not what you want. But they keep, but in their minds, the majority of people haven't been punched in the mouth, right, growing up. So in their
Ever.
mind, they get out here and they're talking shit to a guy who's a trained killer. But he's just doing this. He's trying to have a beer, mind his own business. But you have these people who are just adamant about it. Now you outside in the back of this bar, and Mick Maynard is fucking beating your ass because you
Yeah, yeah.
got to pick on this dorky looking white guy, right? So, and that's the thing, man. Like, that's the evolution of life. Is that it's all about survival of the fittest. So you got these guys who are like dorky looking dudes. They don't want to get beat up, so they go learn some shit
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that going to prevent them from getting beaten up. But again, we're learning shit like these are daily, like jujitsu. Like, when you're in the gym, you're training on how to essentially strangle somebody. The only
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
that's stopping you from killing somebody is morals and a referee or a training partner, right? But in
100%.
a street fight, it's about survival. And so you go pick on this dude who's training to be a killer every day of his life for the past 3 years, and you have no experience in that. You go because you just think you're a guy, you're a man, and you tough. I'm gonna beat this dude's ass, and then you dead. And then what? Like, you just this dude, this dork who probably was like fucking on Revenge of the Nerds looking cat. He just killed you because you were the asshole, and that's where we at.
Oh man, you ain't wrong a bit. You ain't wrong a bit. So what about Dana, man? What was it like meeting Dana? Is he cool or is he kind of? He's always kind of.
I mean, he's what you see. I've talked to him, on several occasions, both prior to my experience in the UFC and after. I've interviewed him. We've had conversations. What you see on camera, I mean, that's what you get. I don't. That's not my type of guy, but it is what the people love him. I respect him from for what he has done for the sport. From the pod. Now he's done some bunch of negative shit for the sport, but he's also done a lot of positive. He and his connections. The sport wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for him and the Fertitas.
Yeah, 100%. I can respect that. I do think you should pay a lot of the fighters a little more. That's my opinion. But also, we have to be realistic. If he hadn't have stuck his neck out, it wouldn't be where it's at. And he does deserve a lot of money. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to hang out with him all the time either. I don't think. I think it'd just be hard. You'd butt heads all the time, maybe. And I could be wrong. But I think you would just. I think if you didn't butt heads with him, he would just kind of run you over in the conversation. So he
Yeah,
recently.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like I said, I've had some conversations with him, but again, you have to remember, like, these are individuals who, like, from their experience in life, like, these are dominant, figures in their spaces, and so they're definitely going to require different types of engagement.
Oh yeah, you got to figure it out different. Now you recently had a fight. You fought a Hall of Famer, I believe. I'm awful on
Yeah,
name right now. I should have wrote it down. Who was that again?
Pat Miletich.
Pat Miletich. That's it. I didn't want to say Mike Jackson
Mhm.
because you're Mike Jackson, but then there is a Mike Jackson that's a coach. No, Greg Jackson. So Pat Miletich, you beat Hall of Famer. Now that was Robbie Lawler's coach at one point. Yes.
Actually, it was. Yeah, 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 it was.
Okay. He actually had a lot of athletes under him. He'd been around a long time, beat a lot of good people. Tell us a little bit about. You got to touch on the build up some because it was a little wild, and then
Mhm.
tell us about the fight and kind of how everything went.
Yeah, Pat. He was the first UFC welterweight champ. He is in the Hall of Fame. He himself has coached a slew of great fighters. Amazing, talented fighters, also in the Hall of Fame. But the build up for that, he and I. Well, first of all, MMA in itself is a melting pot of thing, right? Of all different types of individuals from different walks of
100%.
life. But even with that, the you also have like people don't understand this. For me, like I'm a sociologist, right? So I study people, particularly groups of people, um, particularly in race and race and ethnicity are my focal points of study. So the premier, like when you're looking at fighting, there's a certain group of people who's gonna gravitate toward fighting, right? And that's the idea of the conservative ideology is going to be the main fan base of this industry, that because again it's fighting. Like we're not out
Yeah, yeah.
here like solving world hunger, like we're not being progressive in nature. It's fighting, right? But with that you're gonna get guys who, like I said, you're gonna get a mix from every walk of life, because again
So,
people like,
so
I love
I
guns.
don't make me cut you off or nothing. Let me
But
throw in my piece because I kind of get what you're saying. Different ideologies. You have on a King T'Challa shirt kicking Donald Trump. I have on a white trash hero shirt. Right? There's no ill weird stuff with us. We just have things that we're proud of about our lives and who we are as people. And there's nothing wrong with that. Is that kind of what you're saying or no?
100%, 100%,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
also when you look at it from a fighter's perspective, right? Not a fan's perspective, but a fighter's perspective. When you're in a gym, when you're in training, again, you're gonna have people from all walks of life come together. Our focus is on not letting this dude kill us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's the only, like where if you're training jujitsu, you're trying to like strangle somebody or get this arm this lock in or whatever. When you're striking, you're working or punching, kicking someone. Like that's where the focus is. It's not on anything else. But like when I say that, when I'm talking to people, when I say I'm in a room from people who are students, they may work at a gas station or fast food, to professionals like lawyers and doctors, right? And everywhere in between. If you have a guy who works at McDonald's at fast food and he's going against an engineer, right? He's not focused on the dude being an engineer and vice versa. They're just like, how can I beat this dude's ass?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? How can I get the best of them in this situation, right? So when you're in these rooms, like these ideologies aren't there. But once training is done, these ideologies may come about, right? So for me, I was fully aware of Pat, who Pat is, his conservative nature, but also this is at a time like life in general has shifted from the early 2000s to the 2020s, right? Life in general is much different. It's not the same space socially. But at the time, I understand, politics isn't what it is. So you can have these conversations and it just be that, right? So
100%. If you can't have a conversation or a debate, then something's weird. You're in a cult. I agree. Conversation should happen. Go ahead,
right
boss.
there, 100%. So meeting Pat, like even at the time that I met him, I think he was even running for some political office at the time, and so I was I was intrigued by that. So I wanted to get to know him a little bit better. This is right when Legacy they get signed with Access. Well, it was HDNet at the time, which comes Access TV.
Now, is
And
Legacy LFA or am I wrong?
it was so Legacy was Legacy Fighting. So it's LFC,
Okay.
and then that was before the merger when they came LFA. So this
Okay.
was,
Okay.
like I said, this is before the LFA days. Um, I meet him, have conversation with him. I'm like, yo, this is a cool guy. We can have an articulate conversation. He can express his point of view. I can express mine, and there are no quarrels because we both get where each other's coming from, right? But then you have this shift in the culture where it's not just about policy and politics. Like it becomes more of this, the degradation of human life, essentially, right? And so that's where the change comes. But at the time, we're having these conversations. I'm understanding where he's coming from, and things are what they are, right? Fast forward to Donald Trump essentially getting in office. And so, again, I know he's a conservative, I know he's a Republican. That doesn't bother me, right? So we're having these conversations, but I start to see the shift. not only through the messages that he's sending me online, whether it's text messages or Facebook messages or whatever, the conversations in person are starting to shift. And now this is taking place over the course of 10 years.
So y'all aren't set to fight or nothing yet.
No, this is
So
here.
this
Again,
okay.
he's doing his thing. I don't even think he's competing anymore. For me, I think I compete as I'm competing as an amateur for many years, and then I transitioned to pro boxing. And that's my background is boxing. Um, I just love fighting. I love MMA, and so I transitioned into that, and then
You
we
got to where his messages were changing.
but yeah, so like, I'm seeing him at it, but even then, we're still cool. Like it's nothing. It's nothing to the point where I'm like, yo, I can't fuck with you no more. Like it's still like, all right, you get a little wild, but essentially he shifts over to like the flat Earth kind of people, where he's in this QAnon conspiracy. Even he has a podcast called The Conspiracy Farm. Like he's really into that, and that's where I can't relate to that type of ideology and thinking. Now even a little bit before that, where he's cornered me for the Punk fight. But even with that,
I
that
didn't know
has
that.
yeah. So he cornered me for the CM Punk fight, but even that comes about because in CM Punk's corner is a legend of a coach himself and Duke Rufus,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so it was even that it was less I want Pat in my corner and more like Pat versus Duke Rufus is really what it came about to be. Because I could have had anybody for to corner me against CM Punk. I didn't need Pat there. Like,
Your
I
grandma.
could have had my brother or somebody and it would have been the same outcome. But it was like the Pat Duke Rufus kind of added to the storyline behind it. Um, but then that happens, and then like I said, now we're starting. That was in 2016 ish. So right as this is happening, Pat is starting to drift off into like the extreme MAGA, not just regular like a Republican type individual. He's going to like the extreme like QAnon. I'm like, yo, like you're bugging. Like we can have conversations, but when you're going into like the extreme side, like that's where I draw the line.
Now, to be fair, I don't know what you mean by the extreme side. I know there's insane people on both sides. Like, what can you give us an example? Like, what's something he
Oh,
said
I
that was
mean,
like, nah, this is weird.
dude, like the entire, I feel like the MAGA in itself is extreme. Like that's an extreme side of the Republic. Like again, when we're talking policy, you're gonna have your general conservatives, but the MAGA in themselves, like that's an extreme form of the Republican Party. And again, he's going to the QAnon, he's going into the flat earth. Like even we're at dinner one night, and I think we were maybe in like Minnesota somewhere, and the waiter himself is like this flat earther. And now it was myself, Pat, and one other person, can't remember who it was at the time. We're sitting there having dinner, and to engage with someone who is a flat like that's beneath. Like I can't like I'm not going to engage with someone who has irrational ideologies and beliefs. If that's what you want to feel, hey, you're entitled to those beliefs on your own. But I'm not going to engage with that. And Pat is sitting here engaging with a flat earth, and I'm just looking like, yo, y'all are wild right now. But even with, like I said, so he's doing this thing again. Believe what you want to believe. Just don't bring me into it. And then the insurrection happens. He himself is out there, and so in that, like because by the time that the insurrection happens,
That's when
he
they
and I
stormed the Capitol.
correct on
Okay.
January 6th. He and I we're not really on talking terms by this point. Like because actually, I tell you about even when the pandemic hit, because we were together in like the a few weeks before the whole lockdown thing happened. He's telling me his beliefs on like China virus, and like he's telling me like the black people can't get it. Like he's all these racist sort of ideologies or these ideas that he has. I'm kind of just like, all right, Pat, like you losing me with this. I respect you as a fighter. I respect you as the friend that you are, but these beliefs that you're going down, like I can't fuck with you on that, right? And so once the pandemic happens, like we check in on each other for a few times during the lockdown. But it, that's when you can see the friendships start to deteriorate a little bit. Fast forward, he's out there January 6th. He's taking pictures with notable individuals who were in white nationalist organizations like the Proud Boys, Two Percenters, and I'm like, yo, like again. So my ideology in life is we're living in a world that's essentially racist versus anti-racist. There is no gray area. You're either one or the other in my book. And if you're sitting here platforming known races, like people who have the same beliefs as Hitler, like and King Leopold, like I can't fuck with you on that. So in that instance, I'm still not like bashing the guy. He's the one who posts the photos with his guys doing the white power sign. Um, I make a post about like, yo, dude is out here at the riots. He's at the Capitol doing it at the insurrection. Now, at this time, LFA is like they had some deal with a casino in Minnesota where they were allowed to put on show. Well, I think it was Minnesota. It was somewhere in that area where they were because it was in a casino, and they could do fights, but they would have no audience. So they were just doing fight because again they have LFA had some agreement with some networks, so they had to put on these fights.
Like an Indian casino? Or no,
Uh,
just a casino?
I can, yeah, I mean, I don't know where the ground. I can't. I want to say it was in Minnesota. I don't know
Okay, I got you.
what they
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
but some kind of connection. Um, the insurrection happens. Whatever day it was, Tuesday. It was the middle of the week. They had an LFA show that Friday. So while he's posting this proof that he's at the insurrection, he gets a call, and they was like, "Yo, uh, why don't you sit this? We see you there. You do your thing, but let's let some of the heat come down a little bit. Sit this week out, right?" In his mind, for whatever reason, he feels that he was fired. Didn't happen. They just asked him to sit the week out. So he makes a post, was like, "Yo, I got fired for going to for in my beliefs, going to here supporting the government, whatever verbiage he used." Again, that never he was never fired. He just said, "Hey, sit this week out." So I make a story. Because he makes a video on Facebook. So I make a post about it on my site about the video he put out. Hey, Pat Miletich said he got fired for going to the insurrection. He gets a call from Ed Soares, was like, "Yo, Pat, we never fired you. We just said don't come this week because you was at the insurrection. What are you talking?" And he's in his and again, this is coming directly from Ed Soares. So he's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry. Like I don't know what happened." So he deletes the video that he initially put out. So then I don't even call it a retraction. He just deletes the video and then he puts up another video saying, "Yo, a so-called journalist speaking of me got me fired." Again, he was never fired. And it had nothing to do with me because if you go back and you talk all the other people who've written story, all the other major MMA sites who wrote these stories about Pat getting fired was based off the video he made saying he got fired. When you get the when he goes and speaks to Ed Soares, president of LFA, they expressed to him that didn't happen. They have put out a press release saying that never happened. And even in the conversations, no one ever said I was the focal point. Or no one even mentioned my name, right? So again, he deletes the initial video, comes back and said Mike Jackson got me fired. Well, on the thread, people are saying, "Yo, y'all should fight." I'm like, wait, what? Like first about the time Pat's probably like he's in his 50s. I'm not. I'm what was I do? I think I just well, pandemic happened, so I wasn't doing. I was just sitting on my ass. Um, at no point was I ever in my mind was like, "Yo, I should fight Pat Miletich." Because why should Pat Miletich be fighting in the first place? So people are going back and forth. I'm ignoring it. Then he starts texting me like in the middle of the night, all these midnight, 1 in the morning, and he's telling me how he's gonna knock my ass out.
Do you think he
He
was drunk?
in the moment, I didn't. I had no idea. Hindsight, because since the initial text message, he had a DUI.
Mm.
Then his wife left him, and then the DUI the morning of our press conference. So I don't. In hindsight, I'm like, all right, maybe he really was drunk.
Probably
Because I
drunk.
remember looking at some typos in the text, man. I'm like, I don't think a sober person would speak that way. So I'm getting these these are wild text messages like, yo, I'm gonna knock you out. You can't hang with this machine, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm kind of like, cool. Now go to sleep. It's past your bedtime. Because I'm not engaging in this. I'm not entertaining it at all because why would I want to fight Pat Miletich? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm telling him whatever. Like I'm not fighting you. He's still going on and on. Fast forward to January. Let me see. I had I had my last fight in the UFC. It was in October last year, and then fast forward to around January, and I get messages from him, and he has a podcast co-host, and they're messaging me like, "Yo, you want to fight Pat on this?" It was like in March of early of this year, and I'm like, first of all, I'm recovering from surgery from my past fight. So I'm like, wait, why would I? I'm not fighting anybody in March. I mean, one, I'm recovering, but also I'm not fighting Pat Miletich. And so they keep edging it on. I'm just saying, I'm like, dude, I got shit to do. They're like, yo, fight him in Iowa. They have this event going on. Um, Now, this is all put in that he had done a kickboxing match with Michael Nunn over the pandemic in Iowa. And so there's this idea that it would be essentially the same thing. But me under contract in the UFC, I'm kind of like, dude, like I'm good where I'm at. They're real persistent on getting this fight made. So this was in January. They started for March. It never comes about. February, they're still egging it on, and then because the reason they went in March, it was also there was a UFC event in San Antonio that weekend. So I'm kind of telling them, like, dude, I got shit to do. Like, I'm not engaging or entertaining this. Fast forward to like, well, around March. So now having promoters reach out and they're like, yo, like, Pat's serious. He wants to fight you. In my mind, I'm thinking like they're gonna offer me probably like $1,000, five to maybe two. Like that don't make sense for me, right? To fight Pat Miletich. Now, people like to talk about his age. He's 50. It's still Pat Miletich though. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
this isn't like a regular 55-year-old.
yeah,
It's a Pat Miletich fit. Like this is not the same thing. So in my mind, I'm thinking like they got to pay me a lot of money for me to engage in this. Come back and that fast forward to like May, they like, yo, they hit me up. It's like, yo, we ready to talk. We got our numbers. What we gonna pay you. We ready to go. They came back. They gave me a dope number. I was like, y'all gonna pay me this much to fight this guy? And so I was like, I'm down. And that was really how the fight came about was because they offered me enough money. Because again, I'm a prize fighter. It has to make sense for me to get into a cage and fight. And they offered me enough money to get in the cage and fight Pat Miletich.
yeah. $2,000 to fight a guy that trained Robbie Lawler. I don't think I'd do that. You
Now,
give me
so
it.
like I said, so to the point how it came across, we started as friends, and despite our disagreements, remained friends. He did some insurrection shit. He was there. I kind of said, "Hey, this is what he said he did," and he tried to essentially he blamed me for his downfall in life as opposed to taking accountability for his own actions. And he set it up, and he was like, "This is a guy I want to fight." And on my last one, and we made it happen. I was his dancing partner. It was fun. That was my favorite fight, by the way. Too. I don't know if you want to ask that, but this is easily my favorite fight of all time.
That's awesome, man. That's very cool. So why is that your favorite fight? Just because Pat Miletich?
Um, it was my favorite fight. Well, obviously, there's the backstory behind it, like the build up, the personal connections that he and I have. Um, but the overall experience, like these are I was able to do something that many people aren't going to be able to do, right? From a personal and competitive nature aspect. Despite his age, again, it's Pat Miletich. I was able to share the cage with. Again, I my respect for him as a fighter is always going to be there because for me, I can separate the two. I can separate the fighter from the person because these are two distinctively different personalities, right? As a person, he's a piece of shit of a person. I have zero respect for him, but I can respect him as a fighter. And so sharing the cage with someone of his stature was just an amazing moment. And for him to he says he's gonna do all these things, and I saw it was a great build. It was a great build to the fight. It was like I sold the fight even in the moment. I was able to sell it, and I took no. The only damage that I took in the fight was illegal elbows to the back of the head. I was never in any danger, and he quit on the stool, and
I've seen that.
I was happy about that. You know what? I would have loved to finish because my intentions were to finish him, but he didn't give me an opportunity. He chose to quit on the stool as opposed to go out on the shield. So that's on him. But in my book, a win over Pat Miletich is a win over Pat
It's
Miletich.
a win over Pat Miletich. Now, are you from Tennessee?
No, I'm from Houston, Texas, but the Tennessee Holler, it's a media outlet that I'm a huge supporter and a fan of, and so I have to rep them today.
Tennessee Holler. I'm gonna have to look into that. It sounds like a cool name. Now, I gotta ask, just off the Pat Miletich, what's up with Jake Shields and you? What's the deal, man?
So even with say these are the people who can't take accountability for their actions. So Jake Shields, even how that came about, he was saying some inflammatory anti-black rhetoric. I mean, the dude is a white knight. Like people, the issue with these people is they don't like labels. They know what the label signifies. For me, I know how to antagonize these sort of individuals. He's on Twitter, his favorite platform, saying some real anti-black, white nationalist shit. I engage with him because again, I'm again fighting is sort of like for me, I would rather have a conversation to see where you come from as opposed to fighting. And again, what do I look like calling out Jake Shields? Like this is a world champion. What do I look like calling out for a fight? Makes no sense, right? So I'm trying to engage with him in a conversation, and his response is, "Let's fight." And I'm like, dude, like I'm not trying to fight you. Like I'm trying to ask why you saying some crazy racist shit online right now.
This is a
No,
debate. Let's have you speak your piece. Let me speak mine. That's what debate is. I'm with that. I'm with that.
exactly. But you have to also remember what fighting is. When you have someone who you have to, these are like Pat Miletich and Jay. These are world champions. These are individuals who have to dedicate their lives to the sport and to the profession, and this is all they know. To the point of Pat Miletich wanting to fight me because he couldn't have a conversation with me, he couldn't have a debate with me because they don't have the aptitude for that. All they know is fighting. This isn't like
Smash.
these are senate like these are congressional members, right? Who really know this. They're fighters. So to the point about Pat, well, he and I had to fight because Pat Miletich don't know anything else, right? So for Jake Shields, his response to well, let's fight is because he can't have a conversation with me on this subject matter. So I say, fine, if you want to fight me, here are the terms. So because again, I don't have to engage in this behavior. But fine, you want to fight, here are my terms. And I told him, I was like, look, what do I look like getting into an MMA fight with the world champion Jake Shields? And again, this is Jake Shields who's still competing to an extent. He's coach. He's not in his 50s and just sitting
Mm.
on his ass somewhere. He's still like engaged. So for me to compete in MMA with Jake Shields makes no sense at all. So I was like, fine. You want to fight? The terms of me fighting, you come to Houston, we go get a, you come to my gym, we can shut it down, make sure no one is there, whatever, and we box. If you, because they always want to call me, oh, you're a bum, you're this, that, and the other, fine. If I suck so much, then you would have no problem boxing me because you're a world champion. So we're going back and forth. I tell him what my terms are. He accepts, like, fine, I'll come to your gym and fight. So then he reaches out to my coach and my coach really doesn't understand what's going on because has nothing to do with him. And then the coach kind of shuts it down in a way. So then he comes back like, "Yeah, your coach said." And I was like, "Oh, this ain't got nothing to do with him. This is between you and I. You want to fight? Here are my terms." Now this was in about June. It was summertime of 2021.
Hang on, remember 2021 right quick. I do gotta ask. Now, Jake Shields is a part of the Scrap Pack, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you really think he's a white nationalist? Do you really truly
Yes,
believe that?
that the two aren't mutually exclusive.
Okay,
Like this is the, all that ideology, right? Is like, oh, I have black friends, I can't be racist. That's not a real. That's not how racism works.
I got
That's
you.
not how white
No, no,
nationalism.
I got you.
So
Okay,
to your question, no, I'm just answering your question.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, so this was 2021 in the summertime. He's going off, and I like, look, these are if you want to fight me, these are the terms of fight. Fast forward to December of 2021. No, 2020. This is 2022. Yeah, 2021 it starts. We're going back and forth. Um, we're going back and forth for quite a while on Twitter,
I seen some
and
of it.
or maybe it was 2020. No, it was 2021. So then 2022 comes. We're still kind of going back. He's kind of like he pops up here and there just to say some shit. Remember, I had my fight in October of 2022. I got injured. I had to have surgery on my face. So in December, I know he's in Vegas. Now he's already told me, like, bro, when I see you on the streets, it's on site, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, okay, like if that's what you believe, like it is what it is. So December, I'm at the PI, I'm working out again, recovering from surgery on my face. I'm at the PI working out. Lo and behold, Jake Shields like pops up. Now, in the moment, I just look at him and was like, okay, like we're the business. Now, again, I get it's the PI, but it's still a business.
100%.
And you came there to do whatever. Now, I don't think he was there for me. I think it was just a coincidence that we were there at the same time. This is a whole facility. Go do what you came here to do. In that moment, he made the conscious decision to attack me. Now, he's trying to hit me. I'm kind of parrying his punches or whatever. I'm like, dude, go do what you came here to do. I need to finish my workout. He spits on me. Now,
Ugh.
in that moment, because he's trying to hit me and I'm not letting him hit me, so he spits on me. So in that moment, I'm trying to figure out what should I do because again, I still have on boxing gloves. He has bare hands, so he can grab. I can't grab him, right? He can physically grab me, and then he's much bigger than I am too.
He's pretty
I'm a,
jacked.
I'm 170 pounds, right? From the fight, maybe 75. This dude's probably 220, 230, but also it's Jake Shields.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, all right, if I hit now as because he's looking at me, he spits on me, and I kind of do this. Now, when you look, if first it starts with him and two other people, by now he has like five other people with him. So if I hit him,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
again, I have on gloves, he's barehanded. If I hit him, then it's a fight. But then also,
They
I'm
might
by
hit you.
myself, then they're gonna come. So I'm like, all right, let's not engage with this. Again, also, it's on camera everywhere at the PI. So he's trying to get me because we're outside. If you watch where the video that he posted, we're outside of the octagon that's there. And if we're at the PI and if I agree to fight you, why would we would fight in there's a cage right there that
Glove up.
we would glove up and we would fight. But again, I'm recovering from face surgery.
And it's Jake Shields.
why would I
Yeah.
fight this guy in MMA at the PI? So I'm like, dude, I'm not engaging with you. I'm trying to like. Then it's people is like, all right, like, because we're going back and forth, very like he's saying some shit, I'm saying some shit. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm just gonna leave. Like I don't have time. I'm just like I don't have nothing to do. I have no time to engage with this fucking doof right now. So he ends up spitting on me. He ended up spitting on me twice that day. I'm like, damn, like I really should like really fight this dude. But again, I'm like, yo, you just had face surgery. So as I'm getting my stuff, the dude attacks me from behind. He grabs me, he pulls me down to onto the floor outside of the cage, and then that's where the video starts. So the video
I seen
that he
that.
posts is first of all is out of context. And I even asked people, I was like, who watched the video, like what their thoughts were on it. And they was like, yo, like y'all probably talking shit to one another, and then y'all fought, and he got the best of you. I was like, that didn't happen. Like, and I see how it would come off like that.
Well, all I seen from the video, all I remember from the video is you going, "Is one of y'all gonna get this guy off of me?" And you sound very calm. Are y'all gonna
So
take
right,
this guy off
so
of
what,
me?
what happened? And so I love the people like, bro, you was crying. I was like, dude, y'all gotta stop this.
I didn't
So
hear
what
that.
happened? So to the point of that, right? He grabs me from behind, and it was in such slow motion. I was like, wait, what's going on right now? So we're on the ground, and in the I'm still. It hadn't really registered like what had happened. So my first instinct, like, all right, control his posture, like because I don't want this dude to hit me in the face. So as I'm holding him down, I'm like, and that's what you hear. It's like, all right, guys, like, because again, it's like 6 people, right? And so I'm looking up, like, all right, can like somebody get this dude? Like, what do we do? Because in my mind, like, what are we really doing right here, right? So as I look up, everyone just looking down. You know, have you seen the videos where it's like you see everyone looking like it's a circle of people and all looking down?
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like. So I'm looking up and I'm like, y'all just gonna look at this dude? Like, because again, I didn't I wasn't engaged. I wasn't trying to fight Jake Shields. He attacked me from behind. Like I said, he grabbed me from behind, pulled me down. So I'm like, all right, can someone get this dude off me? And they just looking. And so that's when my boy's like, yo, like, someone get this dude. Like, what are we doing here? So as he postures up, all I could think about, like, dog, don't let this dude hit you in the face. Because the dude was, as you saw in the video, he's throwing like these elbows, he's punching. Now, all these are hitting my forearm, but I don't want to get hit in the face. And so people are like, bro, you don't know the jujitsu. You could have like got up. I was like, well, no, you don't know jujitsu because if I try to get up, my face is exposed.
And it's
With
Jake
the
Shields.
and it's Jake Shields. So that's how that was how that instant calm. It seems like, yo, get him off. So finally they kind of get him off, and he's all in his feelings about it. So in the moment, I'm trying to figure out like, yo, what just happened? But again, the dude spit on me. And he took me, he grabbed me from behind, took me down. And these are like the shots that he was throwing. Like he was really trying to hurt me. Like he said, like, oh, I was giving you love. Nah, the dude was really throwing some shit. Like if I didn't block these shots, it would have messed my face up.
Yeah.
Again, I'm recovering from surgery.
100%.
So fast forward, um, Forrest Griffin, they apparently watched the video and it was like, yo, like that was fucked up what he did. We gonna ban him, but what do you want to do? Now, as we're having this conversation, I hadn't seen the video. I only in my mind, I'm thinking it's just a surveillance video that they're watching. So I go shower, I go get some lunch, and as I'm sitting down eating lunch, the head of security comes over and was like, yo, like we saw the videos. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? And it was like, yo, he posted the video online. I was like, wait, what? And so that was my initiation into him saying or seeing the Jake Shields video out of context. So I'm like, yo, gotta press charges. Because again,
Gotcha.
in that moment, like I couldn't defend myself properly because I'm recovering from surgery and I don't want to get hit in the face. And then
And
the
you're
dude
rolling
spit.
6 deep.
And that's it. He was like, bro, like again, when he initially spit on me, I'm like, should I still off on him? But then when I look over here and I see all his boys, I'm like, again, now this turned into a gang attack.
Yeah.
And why would I want to get jumped by Jake Shields? And these are professional. These are just
Yeah.
like random dudes on the street who were
They're
attacking.
training too.
These are professional fighters at a
Yeah.
high level, right? So I'm like, dude, can't do
And
that. So
and
then,
And the scrap pack rolls like that anyway. Normally, like if
And
you
so
notice, not everybody.
to the point, right? So that whole thing happens, but I end up coming home. And then essentially it was a long process to try to get all of these charges filed and this, that, and the other. It took a little bit of time, but we finally got it. So for me, it's not like people like, oh, y'all are at a gym, y'all could just fight. That is coming from people who aren't fighters. Like these are people who have no idea what they're
Yep.
talking about, right?
It's
These are
different.
just fans. And so if we're gonna fight, yeah, fine. We're gonna fight in the cage. Why would we be fighting on the floor? Like that makes no
Yeah,
sense.
about hit my head on the weight bench. It seemed like a good idea.
Exactly. Like what are we
Yeah.
talking about here? So that's what happened with the Jake Shield shit. Like I
Okay.
went to engage with him from a debate perspective. He wanted to fight. So to wrap it up for with him, I he because he said so after that happens, he comes back. He was like, yeah, like we gonna yeah, yeah. I talked to your coach. You want to box or kickbox? We can do that. So I was like, oh, so you agree to the terms? Fine. So then I laid out the actual like we're gonna do this many rounds, like unlimited rounds, this kind of time limit. And then he calls me a pussy and says that he wants to fight me bare knuckle UFC one. So I'm like, dude, like I'm not fighting you bare knuckle. Like these are the terms. You agreed to the terms. Own up. But I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I really want to fight the guy. Um, but who knows? I don't think he really wants to fight. I think he just wants everything on his terms. But
Yeah, but it is possible it could happen. At least there's the build up to that, and someone will use that footage. Now, what?
yeah.
Now I gotta ask. When you say white nationalist, what do you mean?
So I when I say white national, I'm talking about people who they believe their whiteness is superior than any other person. And they're also just like there are levels and degrees in fighting, there are going to be levels and degrees in your white nationalism. Right? You're going to have people who are extreme, your 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 extreme Hitler type ideologies, and then you're going to have people who are on the fence and they may just tell like racist jokes and think
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
cute, right? And then there's going to be people everywhere in between. So for me, my stance is you're either anti-racist or you're a racist. Like there is no because if you're on the fence, then you're allowing racism to happen. So, like I said, we have a situation going on. If you're just watching some racist shit happen and you're not trying to stop that, you're allowing the racism to trump or not trump to supersede the other person's beliefs because you're just standing there because also you have to the framework that I'm talking about is that we live in a world that the foundation of it is white nationalism. People don't want to admit that or accept this fact, but that's what it is. When we look at people who control everything, who make the most money, who dictate policies and laws in this country, it's white nationalism at the foundation of that. And if you're not trying, and what that is, let me also specify that the racism is essentially classism, and the racism is just an easy way to keep everything in check. Because when you look at class, when you look at who's divided into the classes, that in itself proves the point, right? The majority of people or in the upper class are just white people. Now, yeah, you're gonna have all people like say, "Oh, well, I look at Oprah and look at
Look at Lil Wayne.
but like that, these are out. Of course, you're gonna have outliers in these spaces, but these aren't people who make policy, who make laws to dictate everybody's lives.
Now to that, and this is a thing I've heard. I don't believe this way. I think there's bad people in every race, is my opinion. I think
Oh,
I,
100
I
percent,
think yeah.
hundred
But
percent.
now I heard a guy now the same thing that you just said, where you said all the people in power are white people. I've heard people say that that's Jewish people. I've heard that said. Now where are you at on that? What do
I
you
don't.
think?
Yeah, I don't. For me, it's just white people. Like I get that the idea behind the Jewish people, like oh, they like to bring that trope in. It's like oh, like Jewish are their own race or religion. I don't get into that because that has nothing to do with me from a perspective like I'm not a religious individual, so I don't. My focus isn't on what your religious beliefs are. It's when you want to impose your beliefs on an entire group of people,
Yes, sir.
right? So for me, I don't look at like Jews are running anything. I don't. To me, it's just white people. Because if it is the people that like, and again, there are going to be different degrees of white. Like
Yeah.
a race isn't a monolith. Like every white person isn't the same. Just like every other nationality or ethnicity isn't the same. They're going to be, like you said, they're bad people
Yep.
in every race. There's good people in every
In
race, and
every race.
there's going to be everywhere in between. But when we talk about a system, that's what people don't focus on, and they don't have the aptitude for. They don't have the ability to have these conversations. When we talk about racism and this structure, we're talking about a system. We're not talking about you or me or just this individual person. We're talking about a system that controls everybody. And that's what I'm talking about here. And that's the issue that people have with me. Going back to when we're looking about the MMA space, and the majority of when I say the fan base is largely a white nationalist sort of a fan base, I'm talking about it from a systemic structure. So for me, people don't like me because of the shit that I'm saying, but it's nothing I can do about that. Like I enjoy being um I don't want to say obviously I'm an outlier, but I'm an antagonizer of these people because they can't just go. They create things to be upset about.
Yeah.
They even with it, people are mad at me for calling like people like I have a legit trolls who say they don't like me because I call Jake Shields a Nazi. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, this has nothing to do. All the people who come at me, like I'm not speaking. I'm literally talking to one person, and then all these people come and to support the one person. It's like, wait, so if I called him a Nazi, and then you're defending the Nazi, what does that make you? You're at the very least, you're a Nazi sympathizer. And I'm not going to type out all that. So I'm just going to call you a Nazi. Because also, you don't have to comment on this. Like I just said, when you asked me about the Jews who put it, I don't know. I don't have any knowledge of what's going on in that space. So I don't have to give you an opinion on that.
I like that.
To the point of these people, I call Jake Shields a Nazi. You may disagree with what I'm saying. And I respect people's opinions to disagree with what I'm saying. Don't engage then. You don't have to.
And you should, man. I do believe so many people have beliefs that they will not debate. They will not talk it out. I would love to moderate a debate with you and Jake Shields, but I don't think it would ever happen. I would love to hear more debates. I would love to moderate a debate with you and someone on the opposite side, just because debate's good for you. It's healthy.
Agree, 100%. Which is why I feel Pat and I, we were able to have the conversations that we had for so long because it was very civil. We could articulate our points. I understood. You know, having a conversation with him is why, or having conversations is how I figured out why particular white people supported Trump the way they supported him. And really, what it came down to is financial security. You have all these people who voted for Trump based on one thing. It's like, oh, he's going to make sure that I don't lose money. I'm going to make money, which in turn provides security for your family, right?
Yeah.
And we're having it, and because I was trying to figure out, like, man, why people having a conversation, and it hit me. I was like, oh, I
Affordable
get
gas.
it. So to the point, I can be free again, given the space that I'm in a fighting space. I can have conversations. I can be friends with people who are Trump voters. Now, there's a difference between someone who just votes for Trump and then someone who's spreading hateful rhetoric to everybody. Those are two different people. One person, all right, I voted for Trump. Cool. I get why you voted for him.
Yeah.
But also over here, you spreading some really hateful and mean shit. I can't get behind that. And though again, those are two different people, and that's where the disconnect starts to come because this person over here who's saying the hateful shit, he thinks he's the same person as the dude who just voted.
And there's no middle ground for a lot of people, and that's what makes it so hard. No one wants there to be any middle ground. Like, I understand where you're coming from on a lot of
it's
stuff.
not black and white.
Yeah, I think everyone should be able to be proud of their skin color, their race, their heritage, their religion, whatever they want to be proud of, as long as we're not beating down another group of people for that. That's kind of
Right
what
there.
yeah,
Right there. And so to your point where I say, well, white nationalism is, white nationalism, the foundation of that in itself is to beat down other people. Like, that's the foundation of it. And to the point, right, where you have, and again, this is going to far more nuanced conversations, but just the generalities of it. There's like black people themselves, we're just black. Like, we didn't ask to be black. We we have our own nationalities that we're going to come from. White people as a whole, the whiteness is what's been looked at as bad. Now, we're not saying don't be Irish, don't be German, don't be. You can
Scottish.
have these types of pride. You can be Irish pride, German pride, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you say white pride, there's actually something, there's a negative connotation in that. And so people's like, oh, I should be proud to be white. We're not saying don't be proud to be white, but what's your background? Are you like, we'll go to Conor McGregor. He's Irish. He
Yeah.
has Irish pride. There's no problem with saying, oh, Irish power, Irish pride.
Now
It's not.
I understand the connotations behind what you're saying, but now I will say, Cain Velasquez, he has a brown pride tattoo. Now
Right.
I understand if you was to have a white pride tattoo on your belly, everyone would assume immediately. They're gonna
Because
assume,
those aren't the same, and people like to say though brown pride and white pride aren't the same thing.
yeah, well, because the connotations behind when people say white pride, it's almost always been a
Exactly.
racial term. I
Exactly.
get what you're saying there. Now, so on, I understand what you're saying. And that's what debate is. And again, if you can't have debate, you're in a cult. So be open to debate.
I
Now,
like it.
so now, and to be clear, I have no hate towards any race, anyone. I mean, we mentioned the Jewish people earlier. I need that to be clear to everyone. I have no hate for anyone. I got love for people that show love to me, and that's regardless of skin, race, religion, any of that stuff. Also, now to that, while we're on the subject of stuff, man, we've done more than an hour, dude. It's been awesome talking to you.
Good
On
stuff.
the
Yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Heck, yeah, it's a conversation, and I think we'll stay in touch. We'll try to have some more conversations. Eventually, I'd like to set up a debate. I think it'd be cool.
Let's do
But
it.
people are scared, man. People are scared to talk. Where are
They
you
don't
at?
have they don't have the aptitude to have the conversation. That's why people are scared to talk.
Yes, sir. It's a strange thing to see. Now, on so I don't know that I voted, but I do know my gas was cheaper when Donald Trump was in office the first time. I've
Mm.
got people that voted for Donald Trump the first time when he got in that are saying they're not going to vote for him this time, and they're saying they're seeing some Hitler-like qualities. What are your thoughts on that? Where are you on Donald Trump? Where were you at the whole time?
He's a reincarnation of Hitler. I've said that, and again, I'm coming from a place where so for me, I study groups of people. I've studied, like I've done my research. I want, it was funny. Like, I never said that until I watched the Hitler doc, and it was a doc that was made in like the 30s or 40s, and I was 15 minutes into the doc, and I was like, "Yo, that's Donald Trump. Like, he's doing the same play." And this was probably about, it was like 2 years ago when I watched that, and again, the rhetoric that the guy spreads is hateful. Like, you can't be like, again, when we're talking policy, fine. Like, I get it, you're conservative, do your thing. But the guy has uh, there's so many receipts and evidence of all the fuckery this guy has done. And but again, we're living in a time, there's so many nuanced. Again, this isn't black and white. It's a very much gray area. You have to understand the times that we're in, the technology that plays a role in this. There's so many factors that go into him that it's not just a black or white thing, right? The dude, and again, let me also say the two-party system is super ass. I hate it. It makes
George
no sense.
George Washington agreed.
But that's the game that we're playing. We're like, so people don't understand that. It's like, People, they're in the game, but they want to use the rule set of somewhere to the point. Here's a great analogy. You're in an MMA fight, right? Under the MMA rule set, to just be a boxer doesn't make sense, and vice versa. If you're in a boxing match, you can't use an MMA rule set. So, in the context of where we are as a system politically, we're in a two-party political system. So, until that shifts into something different, that's the game that we're playing. So, people like to say, oh, like, if you're anti Trump, then you're pro Biden. That's I don't think that's not the logic that I subscribe to. I subscribe to the logic of we're in a two-party system and we have to do what's best as a country, as a nation. And if I'm looking at the two people who were running against one another, that's the game that I'm playing. I'm not playing a game where I got these two people, but then I can write in or I can pick this person over here that makes way more sense. That person isn't going to win. And this is from somebody who at one point I was a fan of Rand Paul. I would have loved for him to, and again, I'm not, he's a Republican, but I would have supported him at one point. But then he jumped off the deep end. He went to this fucking crazy conspiracy nut side. So, in the context of a two-party system, you have to pick what's best for the nation as a whole. And unfortunately, it's Biden in this, and from my perspective, because again, I said earlier, I'm a progressive individual. I believe, again, things are going to grow. We're living in 2023 where we have computers in our hands. We're not living in the 17 or 1800s where people were walking around or they had to walk places or get horse and buggy for places, or even for the point of guns where y'all and the motherfuckers are firing muskets. We have automatic weapons in our hands now. So with that, you have to look at times in that perspective. And when you have people from a conservative standpoint, they're looking from shit from 200 years ago. And you're like, wait, we're not living in the same time. You have to be progressive in that nature. And so for me, hopefully, even as a conservative, I'm hoping that people grow and understand that I don't my beliefs wholeheartedly. I don't have to impose that on someone else and be fine with that. To the point of like guns. I'm very pro gun. I've had a gun in my hand since I was a kid. I've been shooting since I was a kid, right? I love guns. I have a bunch of guns. But at the same time, should there be some control over guns? 100%. Because we also live in a time where disease, like when we talk about mental illness, like that in itself is different. But the mental illness of 2023 is much different than the mental illness of 1823.
Oh yeah.
So when you have this instrument that can take lives, just like we do cars or all these other facets of life that have licensings and regulations, why wouldn't you want a regulation over something that can take people's life? And it's so small. Like you have guns, like you know what a derringer is. Like think of the size of a derringer
Yeah.
that can take someone's life, and it's so small. Like like there should be some type of implementations of license and regulations over a fucking derringer. But people like, bro, it's my guns, bro. Can't take my guns. Like no one's trying to take your guns. I love guns.
Now I can see that I can see a need for mental checks on people getting guns. I can see that, but also it seems like a lot of people are just getting them no matter what. Like anytime there's a shooting, it's almost like, well, how'd they get all those? And then it seems like someone was helping them get them. Like at the shooting in was it Nashville or was it Las Vegas? Was it Nashville? It was Las Vegas, I think. The
Both of them.
singer. Yeah, yeah. The country singer was there, and he ended up with like 20 guns in his room, and he'd have had to like had a fresh magazine every 30 seconds or some every 5 seconds or something.
Right.
It's a weird world right now, man. It's terrifying. I'm proud to have the guns that I own. I don't ever intend to pull them on anybody, but if someone was to attack my wife or kids or anything like that, oh, done, easy peasy. Same
As
boat as
you
you, my
should.
friend.
As you should. Like
Same
that's what
boat
I'm
as
saying.
you.
Like this isn't like these conversations are so nuanced.
Yeah.
They're not black and white, and people like to treat them as black and white. Like I said, it's like if you're pro, like people like, oh, if you're anti-Trump, you're pro-Biden, and vice versa. If you're anti, like if you're anti-Second Amendment, you hate guns. Like these, this isn't rational thinking. These are people thinking from an emotional standpoint.
I super don't like the two-party system. I think it should be on a
Ass.
popular vote, I guess. I think a popular vote be better, right? We can just vote whoever we
The
want.
electoral, like think about that. The electoral college, like this is an
Yeah. Popular
institution.
vote don't even matter.
It don't even matter.
That's crazy to me.
It is fucking insane. But that's what I'm saying. Like you have to have progression. Like that's for me. Like I'm not a. I hate when people. Oh, you're a liberal. I'm not a liberal. Like I have a lot of conservative beliefs and ideology. I'm a progressive because I feel that things progress in time. Again, we got computers in our hands right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like like if there was no progression, we wouldn't have computers in our hand. We wouldn't have battery cars. That if there was no progress in life, you know what I'm saying. So for me, it's like we have to be progressive in the political spectrum as well.
I got you. Now, I do got to touch on it because you said it. You said Trump is the reincarnation of Hitler. Do you mean that literally or figuratively?
From a progressive step, but you have to also remember this is 100 years ago, right? So the way a person acted 100 years ago, they're not gonna act right now. So for me, going back, I love labels and brains. So for me, I know how to get to people. So for instance, I call Jake Seals a Nazi or a Klansman. It rubs them the wrong way, right? So when I call, let's take the Klansman, right? Because people think when I say Klansman, someone's gonna be riding around on a horse with a white hood and a sheep, right? That makes no sense because we're living in a different time and space. You can have the same ideologies and beliefs, but you have to shift with the time. So we're in 2023. No, a Klansman isn't going to be riding around on a horse with the sheep. They're going to have some other position in life, and they're going to have
Can't see.
the same. They can't see. Great callback
Yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah. Django.
Um,
Good movie.
you're good. Like it's progression, it's in time. And so to the instance of Trump, I don't feel he's as smart as Hitler, but he has the same beliefs. Like these, you have to change with time. I'll take slavery, right? We can't have the same form of slavery we did 400 years ago. It has to evolve. It has to be progressive. It changes to the prison industrial complex. It changes to redlining and preventing black people or minorities from elevating in life. Like things have to shift. Like you can't just be a slave master like you was in 1823. You can't be that same person in 2023. You have to evolve. You have to change. All of these things are about the evolution of life. And that dude just got stopped. Damn, that dude got knocked the fuck out. Things evolve. And so going back to Trump, I think he's an evolution of Hitler. He saw what didn't work over there. So he got tweaked. Well, hopefully, and I say hopefully I'm being the devil's advocate if I'm from the other side. Um, if I'm supporting him, you would hope that people would shift their beliefs in their tactics because we saw what happened over there. Like, all right, that didn't work. I need to shift it a little bit. And to be honest, he hasn't shifted much, and so to your question, 100%, I feel that, and the reason I feel that is because he has the same beliefs and ideologies. He may dress it up a little different, but at the foundation, it's the same thing.
Now he does say some pretty inflammatory stuff. I seen a post the other day. Now it could have been doctored, I don't know, but it was showing like a similarity between a speech he made and a speech Hitler had made. Now I don't know that that's true because I don't want to lie and say it is. You know what I'm saying? But if that is true, it
No,
looks man, that's wild.
again, I'm someone who does my research. I both read, I watch docs, and I definitely he's literally puppeted, essentially quoted him in his speeches. And again, like I'll go back to give you the mindset. And again, I understand what this person is, right? I understand that the belief in Trump, and I'll even go back to what I feel that whiteness is. It's that whiteness I feel is a belief that you can do and be anything you want to be, no matter what walk of life you come from, and you don't. Again, a white kid can, as a child, like, I want to be president of the United States. Before Obama, there was never a black president. So a young black kid saying that doesn't make any sense, right? But from a white kid, from literally any walk of life, he can say, I'm gonna be a president, and the potential of him now, obviously you have to work at that. You can't just be handed something, but you can go through the proper channels and you have the possibility of being that. So when I see people from fucking West Virginia in the mountains of the Appalachia,
That's almost heaven.
I love the Appalachian Mountains. I love that's my kind. I love like the Beverly Hills, Beverly
Oh,
Hills.
the hillbillies, Beverly Hillbillies.
So for me, I love. I come from my family comes from a small town in Louisiana, so I love the small town vibes, right?
I get it.
So these individuals I can relate to in a sense, but there is nothing relatable between uh, 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 um, a redneck hillbilly family in the mountains of Appalachian, West Virginia, comparing, and there's no similarities between them and Donald Trump outside of their race and skin complexion. But when you have people who support them, there is this belief that they too can be Donald Trump because he's given them this. There's this belief that they can be anything,
He's
which
one of you.
but that isn't a reality. Right? You have to have the connections and networks to be able to do these things, but they don't care. It's like these people, and I say they shooting themselves in the face when you have that type of ideology and belief. Going back to it's class warfare is really what it is. You have these individuals in the upper echelon of the society. They want to keep people down, and so what's the
And they want to
easiest way?
keep people down regardless of color. They don't want you rising up with them.
Regardless of color. Because you
Okay.
think that Donald Trump, these elite white people care about the middle class white people? They don't.
Now, to be clear, I'm with you think the elite any colored people care about any of the people down here because there's plenty of elite people of every color and they don't give a mess about me or you or
I'll
anybody
co-sign
in
that.
this county. I
I'll
got it.
co-sign that.
There we go. See, and there's something good to be said about that. And I hate to see the country the way it is. Used to people could pick themselves up by their bootstraps. You know, tie your laces, get to work, and you might could have a house, a car. You know, let the wife sit at home with the kids. Man, it's different now. It's a little hard. It's a lot harder. I say to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and I think that's all part of the plan. I don't think they want us rising up and meeting them in the middle. I don't think they want that happening.
There's a further divide now, given where we are in time. There's a further divide between the upper class and the lower class. The middle class
Massive.
is being eradicated, and it's to keep the division. Like I say, there's a. Are you familiar with Pimp C? I heard you UGK.
I know the name Pimp C.
Okay, so Pimp C has a line, right? You can't go to war if you got no cheese. Meaning, you have to be able to, if you're going to war with somebody, you have to have the finances and the
Oh,
resources to engage in that.
yeah.
So what these people are doing, they're taking away the ability to fight back. And again, it works in different ways. It works whether you however you're trying to take people's money from them. If they can't fight you, then you won. And that's
Well,
all that's literally all they're doing. You're just taking people, they're taking their ability to fight back.
you can't riot, you can't picket fence, not riot, but you can't picket fence. You can't go to the White House for a week and protest. No one can afford that. And almost
Exactly.
almost everybody's tied up in a job they have to go to. You have to go. How you gonna miss a week of work to go complain about it?
Exactly.
Now that we can agree on. And then real quick, what do you think about? And I've enjoyed the conversation for sure, man. What do you think about Kennedy and Ramaswamy? One's Republican, one's a Democrat. Where are you at on those two guys?
I think both um they're both some wild people. I think I've listened to the vet. I think he's a grifter and a scammer. This is and there's receipts of this what he's done from his business standpoint of scamming people out of money. Um, I think RFK. I listened to him a little bit. I think if I did too. He's probably the better pick over Ramaswamy.
Yeah.
But even
You don't
with RFK, I don't
you don't
know,
think he's
man.
a better pick over Biden and Trump? I would take Kennedy over both. I'd take Kennedy over Trump or Biden.
I would have to do a little because when I've been pretty turned off from what he's stated so far. I know he's definitely on the conspiracy realm of individual, but comparing the two, for sure, I would take him over. I know more about what Biden's doing given where he is currently and the progress he's made. So I can't. Com- I, it would be difficult for me to pick RFK over him, just
Okay.
given what I know. But I'm definitely would pick him over RFK over anybody. But it's to the point he's actually shifted. He's not Democrat anymore. I think again, a two-party system is super ass.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what RFK is doing right now. He was
Okay.
supposed. Somebody said he was supposed to be at the fight too with militant, but I
That'd
don't
have
think
been so cool, man. I'd like to
I
meet
thought he
that
was gonna
guy in
be there. I was
person.
trying. I kept it. I didn't say anything because they mentioned it. Like, yo, he may come. Because they're at the right when we fought in Iowa, they were doing a lot of these pressers out there at the time, and so I thought he was gonna show up, but he didn't show up.
That would
That
have
would
been
be
cool.
fun.
That would have been cool, man.
That would
Now,
be
what about now? You say progress Biden's made. What do you mean? Because again, I don't just follow politics that
fun.
super crazy. Again, I get a lot of my news from Joe Rogan, and then
Right, right. Oh,
I try to listen to debates and stuff. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well,
Uh,
so the let me
now,
also
and I say that in the sense like I mean like I don't watch the news. I'm
no,
not
no,
going to go
I
watch
know,
CNN
I
or
for
Fox.
sure, for sure. No, for me, I also feel that the when we talk about that level of politics, that isn't as important to me as it is local level. So I think that's where a lot of
Girls,
um,
quieten down.
laws and progress and policy is made is more at the lower levels. But what happens when you have someone like Biden, he can if he has the support, if he has Congress, if he has or the Senate and the House with them, they can impact judges, which is going to affect at a local level. What we're still go back to the point of local election. The House Speaker right now, who is like two removed from being president, right? The House Speaker won. He got in this position to be House Speaker because he won some local election in some random ass town and it was uncontested.
Ugh.
So if we don't, and you have to remember the local elections are probably going to be the least voted or least participated elections that we have, which is unfortunate because if we're implementing people who have real beliefs, who are talking about real change, right? This is how we make the impact at the higher level, right? And I say that from a standpoint outside of Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, being a completely insane nut job at the moment, and I say that very lightly. Think about people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a person who is in Congress, who's writing bills and passing laws and making policy. Or let me rephrase, who has the ability to do these things, right? That implement and impact her constituents, right? When we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about jobs and these things in her area, but she has done nothing to help her people. The only bills and things that she's had any kind of say in is about impeaching Biden. And that in itself has been in retaliation because people think Biden has something to do with Trump. That ain't got nothing to do with anything. But we have these people who are elected officials, again, in Congress, who make laws, and they're not doing anything progressive. They're not doing anything to help the people out, right? And to help not only her people, but the American people. I say this for the longest is that if you want to have a strong country, right, you need to have healthy citizens,
Yeah.
which is one reason why I feel that universal health care will be a major positive for the country because if people are going their health is taken care of
and are going to work. You're going to have people who are ready to defend the country from every aspect. I'm not talking about from military, but from a civil aspect. But if you have a country who's they're poor mental health, particularly mental health is the biggest thing, but just poor health in general, who you gonna fight with poor health?
Yeah, yeah.
You can't defend yourself. You can't not only can you defend because you're sick, you can't defend your neighbor because they everyone is sick. Like everyone, no one is making progress. So for me, you have to have a sustainable a population of people, and that comes from better health care, better roads, better access to things that are going to make life healthier. And we're right now we're having people who are fighting. They're creating things to be upset about. Think about it, right? I don't want someone in office who is gonna make some shit up to be angry. Like we got some people over here, right? Again, I'll just say trans people, and I say that from a standpoint that I don't my when I say I don't care, I mean these people don't impact my life. Trans people gonna be trans people. They're gonna do their thing in their life, have zero impact on me. But why would I want a politician to come in as opposed to being progressive and writing policy to uplift her constituents? She's right. She's attacking trans people that ain't got nothing to do with the constituents. You're using all of that energy to create some shit to be angry about and attack because you don't have the ability to uplift your own people. So that's what I'm talking about when I speak of progressive terms. I speak in terms of like making people better.
Yeah. Now, to on the trans thing, I will say, I don't think the school is a place for like the trans reading hours and things like that. I
No,
don't think that's.
it doesn't because again, I don't. This isn't an instance where
Now, did you say why or right?
yeah, like and the reason
Okay,
I say
so
why is
so
because
my why? Okay,
rhetorical why. The
yeah, yeah.
reason I say why is because this has no impact, whether it's trans, whether it's gay or the LGBTQ. This has no impact on kids
I've
because
got
what
you.
they're doing is just trying to teach people to
I've got you.
accept someone
Okay.
who's different.
Now, 100%. Now, I'll give you my why, and I think you'll understand when I get it done. Now, it'd be one thing if, like, when they're doing, like, instead of having a trans reading hour or whatever they're calling it, I don't think that's a need, right? I don't think that's a need. But more often than not, when you see it in the school, it kind of looks like almost a fetish. They're not just showing, hey, this is who I am, right? They're instead, like, you've had one guy, he had like triple Z tits and stuff, and he was teaching school class. That's a little weird for me for the kids to be around. And then like you'll see sometimes at libraries and then even at schools, like they're almost like stripping in the classroom. They're dressed super inappropriately. Even if it was a biological woman, I'd be like, no, I don't want my kids to see that. And that's what I mean by that. As far
Yeah,
as what they
for sure.
yeah.
Like, but that now that goes into the essence of like we're talking about like you don't want like a porn star or a stripper to come and like again, I don't have a problem with a porn star stripper reading to kids if they're like dressed like the only way you know they're a stripper porn star is if they tell you, right? I have no problem with that because again, these are people like everybody else. We're talking about it. You want people to feel comfortable. You have to remember not too long ago people didn't even share that they were gay because they could be killed for being gay. And so we have to talk about and so people is like, well, why are all these people coming out now? It's because things are being more acceptable. There was a time there's never been a time where there wasn't gay people or trans people or anything
Ever.
like that. But what happens is it's all about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. We're now in a time where it's a little bit more acceptable to be openly whatever you want to be. Again, you can be whatever you want. You don't have to you're not pushing that on someone else. And what I say by that is that trans people, gay people, whatever, they're not pushing their beliefs on other people. What they're doing is saying, hey, if you're a little girl or you're a little boy and you feel a certain way, it's acceptable for you to stand in your truth and be proud of who you are. You don't have to be in the closet. And that's what this is doing. But what happens is people like to turn it around because we live in this Christian, this religious sort of world, and if you disagree with my beliefs, then you're the bad person. No, you can be Christian or whatever. You don't have to impose your beliefs on the other person who doesn't believe in what you believe in. And that's where we are. We have these individuals who, and it's a small group of people, but they have power, they have a voice, right? And they have these beliefs and ideologies. And as opposed to say, hey, I'm gonna click with my people, they say, hey, everybody should think and feel like I should feel. And that's where the problem comes in. Going back to the foundation of systemic racism and systemic white nationalism. This is all the foundation of it. It's essentially trying to control people and tell them what they can and can't do based on your own beliefs.
No, no. Now, I think if someone decides they want to be gay, trans, anything they decide they want to be, dude, it's your sex life is your
No,
sex
not
life.
you. I'm not saying you. I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
saying
no,
you.
no,
Okay.
Mike, you're super good, man. You're well spoken. It's a good conversation, my guy. I'm just telling my part now.
Oh,
We're
for sure.
we're
Yeah.
good. I'm enjoying it. Now, where it gets weird for me is like I don't really express myself sexually at my house, like because
Mhm.
I'm a girl dad, right? I don't want them to see certain things. Now, as far as like there's a show in the area where they're sponsored by a strip club, right? And I say it quietly because my kids are home now. I don't want them even thinking that's a job. Now, dude, I'm not judging them people at all. Dude, by all means, your job is your job, your walk of life is your walk of life. But just as a girl dad, I don't want to push that. I don't want them to even know that that's a possibility, right?
Mhm.
I just don't. Now you're seeing some things at the schools, like again, if it's one thing if like the teacher is trans and it's just like, hey, get to work and do your math homework. But it's
Mhm.
another thing if like that teacher comes to school and their butts flashing, right? That's when things get a little strange.
For sure.
Or
For
or
sure. For
like
sure.
or like yeah, yeah, or like if they have like big crazy fake bonkers, which is like understandable, but man, we're being a little weird about it. Or like they'll have like a trans reading hour, and
Mhm.
like I seen one dad had to go up to the school and they had the door blocked. They weren't going to let that dad in. Now, if that dad's choice is for his kids not to see that, I think the kids shouldn't have to see that. I think that's the dad's call. Now,
100%.
and that's the other side pushing their thing, right? Again, it's not black and white. There's two different sides because we've got these people on one side that want to push a certain agenda and people on the other side that want to push an agenda. I think your sex life is best made at house. Now, if you want to go out and dress as a woman, dude, that's your right, man. Whatever you want to be identified as, that is your right. But where I think it gets weird is like once it starts getting super inappropriate, or we're pushing something and the parents aren't aware that it's being pushed, is what I mean.
So, and that's a great point that you made. But here's the difference between the two, right? How you said the dad didn't want, or you, for instance, don't want your kids exposed to that, which is perfectly fine. But the issue is the people who don't want their kids exposed to it, they're pushing this narrative where they don't want anybody exposed to it. And that's the problem. If for the first for you, if you don't want your kids exposed to it, fine. Hey, because there was a time, and I don't know what it is now, but if your kid went on a field trip, you would have to sign off on where the field trip is, right? Or where they're
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want my kid
I
to
like
go
that.
there.
I like that. Yeah, no thanks.
And that's okay. But with the issue, like I said, is you had a parent who said, I don't want my kid to go there, but then also no kid should go there.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's not your choice.
and that's the point. So even to this from the flip side, where you have like a trans or gay or whatever reading hour, again, if you have no problem having your kid go to that class or go to that there shouldn't again
That's your
long
choice.
long as no one is being inappropriate with
Yeah.
kids, et cetera, et cetera. But even then, we're talking about people who are inappropriate with kids, and people say all these things about trans people. The people who right now who is most known for being inappropriate with kids are people in religious positions of power. That
It
is
does
a
happen.
so that's what I'm saying. So again,
The Catholic Church.
the issue isn't what's being pushed. The issue again is saying, hey, I have these beliefs and everybody should believe what I believe. That's the problem.
And that's a cult. You're entitled
And
to your
that's a
own
fucking cult
beliefs.
right
You're
there.
entitled to your own, and that we agree on. You're entitled to your own beliefs. And if you
Yeah.
cannot sit and talk, Mike, we're not the exact same. We're cool. We just had a conversation. There was a little debate there. People can say no if they want to, but there was some back and forth there, man. Some talking. Never got angry. Never had nothing weird come off the cuff, man. I have so much enjoyed the conversation with you. I thought it was going to be way different, man. I was nervous. I thought you were going to be a jerk and not cool and not be open to listening and let me speak in. You were very polite, man. I'm looking over here so I can look at you, dude. It was a great conversation. I really really did
You know,
enjoy it.
the feeling is mutual. I had no expectations. I was just like, yeah, I enjoy it because I know who I am. I know this is how I am as a person, how I come across. So I had a feeling like this was going to be reception. And I say that when I did the press conference when I went to Iowa, right? And so I'm doing the press conference. I'm looking out into the crowd. I have these guys who ask these questions, right? And these are Pat Milicic fans. They're probably at training his gyms and shit like that. And they would ask a question, and then you can see the way they would start asking the question. They had a little bit of you can see a little animosity in their face. A little, they were real intense. And I give them the answer, and I'm looking at them. They're like, "Oh yeah, I get where you're coming from." And then fast forward to after I'm standing outside, I was looking at this billboard who they were showing like advertisements. I was kind of out there checking out. And I had one of Militic's friends, this old guy. He comes out and he's like, "Hey, I just want you to know, that's my guy. Like I love him. I trained on him, give me his history." But I like what you were saying up there. You're very articulate. You were making some good points. And that was all that I'm trying to get people to understand. So what happens is in this MMA space, if you only see me come across on like MMA Twitter or anything like, I understand how I may come across. But also you have to understand I'm coming across that way because of the environment I'm in. I'm not in like tech Twitter or a tech and engineering environment. I'm in a fighting environment where all of these people, I get people who have never fought a day in their life feel that they can stand across from me and beat my ass. And that is hilarious to me because
Tell
one,
you what you should have done.
first of all, I love fighting. Like I'm first of all, I'm a part sociopath. Like I love this shit, right? And I
Greatest
acknowledge
sport
that.
on greatest sport on the planet
Great sport. We get to fucking fight.
ever.
But to think for 1 second that a person with zero fight experience can stand across from me and beat my ass is the funniest shit to me. And so I have when I'm engaging with these types of people, I come across the way that I come across because of my audience. Like I'm dealing with some people who are they're dunce. Like these are not smart, and I'm a very intelligent person. I'm well educated, and I know that about myself. I know my background. My friends.
Got
These
him.
people are fucking idiots, and so I have to engage. So to your point, I understand why you may have felt how I was going to cross, but when we have the conversations, it's a little bit different.
Dude, I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed the time.
Me as
What?
well. I did as well. I be honest with you. I enjoyed this conversation.
Heck yeah, brother. What's the next step for you? And if you want to give any shout out sponsors, anything like that, feel free to
Ooh,
go
next
ahead.
step, man. I'm getting so I work in finance as well. I trade stocks and things like that. So that's what. And so people they always like, bro, you just be on Twitter talking shit. Like I'm in my computer trading stocks all day,
You need to
and
hook my stocks up.
with Twitter on the. I got Twitter and my charts going back and forth. But so that's all I'm doing, man. It's really out here just trying to get back in order. Getting ready for a fight. It does something like people. That's another thing. Like people have no idea what it's like to prepare to step into a ring or cage against someone who's just as skilled as you, and they're trying to like fucking kill you essentially.
Maybe more skilled.
Maybe more skilled, right? And that, and particularly at this level, this isn't like low level debut where you have no idea. I remember when I made my debut in MMA in 2008. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had zero idea what I was getting into. In 2023, fighting Pat Milicic, I knew everything I was getting into. And when you're preparing for such a competition of that nature, like it does a lot. So all day long, I'm thinking about another guy. Every day, all day long, I'm thinking like I'm playing this fight out in my head, and that's draining. And so I'm still sort of trying to get back acclimated to my regular life. And so that's what I'm doing right now. Antagonizing white nationalists on Twitter and on social media, working in finance, and who knows? Maybe a Jake Shields fight, maybe boxing, maybe kickboxing. We'll have to wait and see.
Heck yeah, that's cool. And Mike, we're gonna stay in touch for sure.
Please, please.
Guys, that has been my time with Mike Jackson, the truth. If you disagreed with anything that he came on here and said, you are welcome to come on and refute that. You're welcome to have your own opinion. If you're open to a debate, we would love to set up a debate. Mike, very well spoken. I appreciate the time, man. Nice to meet you, my brother. Have a good day,
You as
okay?
well. You as well, man. Take care.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You didn't know?
Ow!
Your ass better come